Hey everyone, Chuck here. Hope you're having a good morning or evening, depending on what part of the world and time of the day it's at here. So in this video, what we're going to look at is what we call the product process matrix. It's a big part of our exam. It's looking at how the environment we're in, whether it's make to stock, make to order, assembled order, engineered order, how that lines up with our process types in manufacturing, whether we do it by batches or one-piece flow, as well as the physical layout. And so we're going to capture it for manufacturing here. We're going to capture it for service industry as well while we're here. And then we'll look at it in terms or in context of the where you're at in the product life cycle, from introduction to growth, maturity, decline, etc. So kind of a big video here for us. Let's jump over to share screen. We'll bring up our whiteboard and then we'll start sketching this out here. Okay. So what we're going to look at from a chart standpoint right here is we're going to look at volumes, low versus high, and variety on the left side. So we'll look at that from low to high variety. And what we look at typically is, I'm going to put these 4 circles in here. So we're talking about make to stock. We're talking about assemble to order, make to order, engineer to order. And so what we're looking at here is we're saying, hey, make to stock tends to be high volume, low variety. So we're making possibly the same thing. We're cranking it out in high volumes, day in, day out, hour by hour, minute by minute. So it's high volume, low variety, versus the other end of the spectrum, make to order, which is much lower volumes, much higher varieties. So I may give you a print and say I want 5,000 in January and only 2,000 in April, 6,000 in September. And that can go to the extreme of, let's get these out of the way here. The extreme can be engineer to order, which is very low volume and very high variety, to the point of even being a one-off. I'm going to make one packaging system for my factory. Okay, so different volumes, different varieties. With those, so we're going to focus in on make to stock here. With those, then, what we see from a process type is basically 4 different categories here. I'm going to put these in rectangles, and we'll talk about these a little bit later here. So this is considered product-based. This is cellular. Here is a functional layout. And here is a fixed position layout. So what we're meaning here on the very bottom right by product-based layout for our manufacturing layout is we're setting up an assembly line for the product. So we're taking one machine from work center A, one from work center B, one from C, one from D. We're setting up a assembly line that's based around the product. So this could be like making pens or cups or paper clips or any product that's high volume, low variety. Next to that, cellular is typically, it's not as high a volume, a little bit more variety, but we're making families of products. And so an example here I think of, because I'm a type 2 diabetic, is the needles that I use on my insulin pen. The only difference is the length of the pin that gets injected into the skin. But the outside cap, the covering over the needle, the seal to protect the needle itself is all the same. So I'll go through a cell that might look like this: A, B, C, and D, where A is the same base being put together. Then I insert, maybe it's going to be a 32 millimeter needle. And then I put a cap around that, and that cap is big enough so it can cover all the different lengths of needles. And then I put the seal on it. So I'll make a whole bunch of 32 millimeter needles, and then maybe I'll switch over to 34 millimeter. Then I'll go up to 38 millimeter and then back down to 36 millimeter needles. So I'm making a family of similar products. Functional for make to order, typically don't have the volumes to set up an assembly line. So we set up the factory in departments. In other words, by the function of the equipment. So if I look at my factory over here, I'm going to break it up into 6 parts. This could be all the shearing of metal, then what's called braking, B-R-A-K-E, where we break the plane of a piece of metal into a 90-degree angle. And then maybe in the third department, we're going to do welding, and then we'll do sanding, and then we'll do assembly, and then shipping. But the volumes are a lot lower, the variety's higher. So we move through departments that share similar function of equipment. And then finally, engineer to order, fixed position. What we've got there is people come to the work center where we're putting together this packaging system that I was talking about. So that's the 4 areas that are going on here: fixed, functional, cellular, product based. Okay. So wrapped around that, then we'll go a little bit further. The engineer to order from a manufacturing process type tends to be more project based. Make to order is more work center based. Then we get things in batches, and then ultimately line or continuous, which again, on the bottom right is more one-piece flow. Upper left tends to be in bigger batches. So those are the manufacturing process types. Now, what goes with this also, we're going to look at this over on the left here, is we're going to look at the frequency. See if I can spell it here for you. Frequency of production, the type of tasks we'll be doing, and then finally the lead time expected. So if you look on frequency of production, at the bottom here, it's more one-piece flow. High volume, low variety. We're making the same thing all the time. The frequency is continuous flow, where at the other end is much more intermittent. We're making it less often and more irregular time basis. So we're going to be more oriented towards the batch production. The tasks we'll be performing as we get down to make to stock, we talk about it being divided and repeated. So we're going to take all these tasks and break them down into smaller pieces to be done on the assembly line. And then you're going to be at that machine 8 hours a day doing the same thing, versus up on top as we get more towards work center, make to order, engineer to order, project based. You're in a department, you could be doing a whole range or diverse set of tasks. And the work is usually a bit more complex at that point, not as dividable, if that's a word, into smaller pieces. Excuse me. And then with it, typically, the customer lead times tend to be very short on the make to stock, and the expectation is a very long lead time on the more project based, make to order, custom, because what's expected there is you're going to need time to design, get the raw materials, etc. Excuse me. Early morning, getting the voice going here. So that's manufacturing. Now we can carry this over into the service area too, with somewhat the same idea. We talk actually about, instead, I'll do it in blue, product efficiency. We talk about contact over here on the left. And then I'm going to add across the top here, sales opportunity, low or high. So if you think of any kind of service you go through, putting together a vacation where you do it yourself, tax services, you can do it yourself. When we get into very high efficiency, there's typically very low contact, very low opportunities for sales. These might be things like it's do it yourself taxes or accounting services. We've got just mailers going out to people, and we just crank out high volumes of mailers or contacts or softwares, and people People buy what they need and perform the service themselves. Very little contact, very little opportunity for sales additionally beyond buying the software or whatever. Versus the upper left now, in this case, if we go way up here on the left, what we end up to see is the very highly customized services. So maybe you've got a very big, complex vacation you're setting up, or a big, complex tax situation. You need custom help. Well, the volume is going to be very low. You're going to have lots of contact with people to help you. And now, whether you avail yourself on it or not, there's going to be much higher opportunities for them to sell on additional products and additional services that go with that. Okay. All right. So let's carry this into the third part. Go to another picture here. Let's go into, well, let's do this in two parts, actually. Let's do the first one up on top here, the product life cycle, which looks kind of like this. So we go through introduction of a product, then it goes through growth, we go through maturity, and then the product starts to decline over time. And then this is our volumes. So if you think about this, the appropriate layout, because of the volumes, will probably look like this. We're going to have engineer to order to make to order. And then over time, as things grow, we'll see make to order moving to make to stock. And then probably at the higher volumes, we'll see make to stock. And again, depending on the product, of course, it could be assemble to order. You know, if someone's buying a computer and they're picking the modules, we may see it that way as well. But then over time, as things start to decline, we'll see a move back towards make to order, and at some point, probably even engineer to order. So this whole volume variety picture, if you look back to this mess of a picture we have here, it applies in manufacturing, it applies in service. And then the next picture tells us that, hey, over the life cycle of a product, where you fall on that matrix will change at the same time too. I would guess, Chuck opinion at this point, lots of questions you could ask on the exam. I don't know, 3 to 4, 4 to 6 questions perhaps, just on speculation. So think of products that fit in all these environments, like I gave you for examples back on the slide beforehand, you know, and have those ready as examples to help you memorize the characteristics as you're going through taking the exam.